During the war, people in the Society of Friends had a difficult time. They wanted to support their neighbors, but they were against war or fighting of any kind. They did not serve in the army for either the British or the American colonies. Some of these Quakers, however, did want to fight and support the cause of freedom. During the war, they chose to leave the main body of the society and form the Free Quakers. The new group stuck to their beliefs of plain talk and dress and of looking to their inner light. However, they also saw that sometimes fighting for what was right was okay. After marrying, Betsy and John joined this new group. They began attending services in a building the group had built in 1783. Betsy was able to return to her Quaker roots and to the services she had grown up with. While Betsy was returning to her Quaker family, she and John were starting their own. In 1785, their first daughter, Clarissa, was born. She was joined a year later by Susan. The Claypools continued to work together in their shop, moving to a larger home in 1787. They needed the room. By then, they had two more daughters, Rachel and Jane. Betsy's life was busy with work and 5 daughters to care for. At the shop, business was good. Along with flags and home furnishings, they made furniture for ships. John knew exactly what types of things ships needed, and he was able to bring in more customers. In fact, the shop did well enough that John and Betsy could afford to buy a horse and carriage by 1786. When he was not working, John spent time helping others. The Quakers had always been anti-slavery. Inspired by his Quaker beliefs, John worked with groups that tried to free slaves and aid prisoners. These new groups sought to make sure free black people remained free and were not kidnapped back into slavery. They visited jails and demanded fair and healthy treatment for the prisoners. By 1793, Betsy and John had a fine family, a good home, and steady work. But in the summer of that year, a tragic epidemic spread throughout Philadelphia. Yellow fever struck, and thousands of people died from the disease. Betsy's parents died early in the epidemic. Betsy's sister Deborah died too. Her sister Mary died soon after, also possibly from the fever. The yellow fever epidemic was over by early 1794. That year, John found another job. He went to work for the new United States government as a customs inspector. His job was to check the imported items brought to Philadelphia on ships. Betsy continued running their shop, which was making furniture for the new government buildings. Philadelphia had been chosen as the capital of the young United States, though the capital would later move to New York City and then Washington, D.C. Experts such as Betsy made cushions, pillows, wall coverings, curtains, and more. Congress met in Philadelphia, and George Washington, the leader of the Continental Army, had been elected as the first president of the new nation. His office was in Philadelphia, too. The city became the center of activity for those who took on the difficult work of turning 13 colonies into a united nation. With their success, Betsy and John Claypool could afford a grander lifestyle. The Claypool daughters attended a private school. They went to fancy parties. At one of them, Betsy's niece Margaret danced with President Washington himself. Betsy Griscom Ross Ashburn Claypool had come a long way from struggling to find food during the cold winters of war.